Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
The sun was blazing down so hard that even her breath was getting hot. She had long wanted to hide in the shade, but she couldn't afford to show weakness in front of her friend. Turning on her other side, the girl asked Kathy hopefully, "Would you stop roasting?" Kathy didn't even move. Apparently, she was enjoying the process, as evidenced by her cheerful voice. "Emily, stop whining. Go Okuniv if you're too hot. At the same time, check on our champagne." Emily got up lazily. "You're right. We should take a dip. I have my doubts about the champagne. I wonder what they are." Kathy assumed an incredibly difficult body position that shocked her friend. Kathy misjudged the strength of her voice and screamed as loud as she could. "Kathy, how did you do that? That's something you only see in the circus. Why'd you kick it out like that? You're gonna break something, aren't you?" Kathy didn't expect her friend to react so violently, and she flinched. Her body instantly returned to its normal anatomical position. "Emily, what are you yelling about? She wants the whole village to come screaming at you. If you don't understand why I do this, I'll tell you why I do it. I do it to get an even tan. Do you know what they use in the city to identify hillbillies?" Emily randomly said, "I know which one I'm going against. Here's not guessing at a specific tan. Farmers mostly sunbathe while walking in the field, so they only tan their backs and arms, and their legs a little bit." Emily shrugged her shoulders in confusion. "Sure, that's a useful observation. But what good is an even tan to us? We're going to the city to get a job, not to show off our good looks." Kathy sat down and adjusted the towel underneath her. "Don't you think we'll meet some guys in town and they'll invite us to the beach for a vacation? And when we take off our robes, we'll reveal a picture that will shock potential suitors. You know what? Going out in public with a tan like that, you should just get a tattoo on your forehead. I'm from the country." Emily tried to object. "What's wrong with being born here?" Kathy grinned. "And cite the famous proverb, where you were born, there you are useful. It's all nonsense. It hasn't worked on me for a long time." Having expressed his opinion, Kathy turned his attention to his flushed flanks. "I think I'm a little burned out, and therefore it is time to urgently take remedies." The girl looked at her friend, who continued to stand beside her. And already the commander with such a tone ordered Emily, "Why are you frozen? Get the champagne. This is the best remedy for sunburn." The face of her friend took a suffering expression. "Kathy, maybe you shouldn't get divorced in this heat." Kathy also gave her friend a look that she could do just as well. Soon the splash of water was heard, and then the satisfied voice of Krakova. "Kathy, the idea of Kunis is such good water." Admirer of a beautiful tan muttered under his nose, "Before I have enough in this ditch any disease to pick up. There are leeches crawling here and other nasty things." Emily repeated her call. And this time Kathy and cheerfully answered, "Let's have champagne first and get in touch. And afterwards I might follow your example." Emily returned with a gripping bottle of cold. "To open myself, I do not know how to open." "I didn't doubt your limited abilities. It's for that reason, friend, that I'm trying to change your dreary existence. After all, the city life compared to the village cosmos, only there you can feel human." The girl masterfully coped with the opening of the stubborn dish, and Emily again gave her an admiring look. "How do you do it so skillfully?" Kathy poured the bubbling drink into disposable cups. "I worked in a bar there at one time and learned the art. To be honest, life in the city isn't sugar, and not all newcomers are welcome either. I mean, the city's accepting. Believe me, in those 3 years since high school, I've been so loved by Emily with the same old subservience." Reached out to Kathy. "I believe you. You're my best friend." Kathy held out her cup. "Then let's toast to our clear friendship." The thirst was so strong that the girls emptied their cups in one sitting. Kathy reached for the bottle again, but Emily stopped her. "Look, don't get so excited, or my head's going somewhere. It'll pass. Champagne has a short-lived effect." Emily looked at her friend with respect. You talk as if you drink this noble beverage every day. Kathy was silent for a while, and then slowly stretching the words, said I with my girlfriend not only drank champagne every day, but once took a bath. Come on, honestly, you know I never cheat. The girls were quiet for a few moments. Each of them was thinking about her own thoughts, and especially Emily at this moment did not want to disturb the flow of pleasant thoughts. She already imagined herself in a jacuzzi, where instead of water bubbled champagne. And all this idyllic scene takes place in a luxurious city apartment. Kathy, Emily interrupted her sweet dreams. Yesterday you asked me why I didn't apply after high school. Yeah, I did. I asked you that yesterday, and you gave me some bullshit. And tell me honestly, what's the point of going to school? Emily yawned. What did you do to me after the champagne? I can tell you one thing about the benefits of studying. Today you can't get anywhere without a diploma. I'm not the heiress of an oligarch or at least a governor. Your moms can't get enough of you either, trying to hold on to your youth. My dad's a hard drinker, but I still went to college and got at least some profession. By the way, Maria also studied to be a chef, and she has no one but her old grandmother. Kathy burst out laughing. Our incomparable fool has found someone to cite as an example. And where does she work on Peter's farm with her diploma? During the sowing harvest, our farmer opens a canteen to feed the working people, and he recruits women for seasonal labor for joy. Temporary work for a trifle. And I heard from Anna that Peter's going to go bankrupt soon. You see, even businessmen make bad businessmen from the countryside. So there's nothing for you to do here, Emily. Unless you get a job painting roadside bollards and bus stops. There's no other fate for your painting diploma. Emily mumbled. Yeah, I guess you're right. Well, I'm afraid Kathy spanked her friend would make her back blush. He who doesn't take risks doesn't drink champagne. The girl divided the drink into cups and prepared to drink it. But something caught her attention. She pushed Emily with all her might, and she let go of her glass from her hand in surprise. Kathy, be careful. But her friend didn't let her speak again. Emily, look, there's an unknown object moving towards us from the village. I wonder who's going to disturb the rest. Emily stared at that point too. What was Kathy looking at? It took her only a couple of seconds to find out who dared to disturb their privacy. So it's our dope. Have we sadly done our head in? Now he's going to tell us about his grandmother. Noticing her classmates, Maria quickened her step. She waved to the girls from afar. Hello, girls. As the water is not optimistic, answered like steamed milk. Are you going for a swim? Maria approached their parking lot and stared admiringly at Kathy. Kathy, I didn't recognize you. Kathy grinned. That's good. That means I'll be rich. And you, Maria, haven't changed. Where are you going? I'm going to pick sorrel. Grandma asked me to. She loves sorrel. Kathy said with undisguised sneer, good food and healthy. We won't keep you to Grandma's errand. Yeah, but I'm off then, go Maria. Good luck to you. They watched in silence as Maria moved farther and farther away from their rookery, when she was already a decent distance away. Kathy said with exasperation how primitive it was, and yet someone likes such squalor. Some of them spilled the rest of the champagne. You mean Sam? He's not even out of this world running after this lunatic. You know, even gives her flowers. They're all over the flower beds at the village hall. Emily was well aware that Kathy had a crush on Sam back in high school. True, the son of the district officer paid no attention to her. He was openly courting Maria. I wonder how long this amorphous romance will continue. Kathy's bouncer suddenly revived. And does not Maria reciprocate him? After all, such an enviable beau. Emily made a funny grimace. She won't let Sam to himself closer than at arm's length to Anna. I was told in the store that Maria, at the expression of guys at other girls, he does not want to look. So the caring grandmother is actively seeking an antidote to the conspiracy. We have such passions here sometimes. Kathy shrugged her shoulders as if she wanted to shake off an invisible weight. You tell me so fascinatingly, as if I had come here to visit. Listen, friend, I just had an idea. How would you feel about taking Maria with you? The girl's dying of boredom out here, and I don't think she's getting much at the field canteen. And in the city, there are so many prospects from such a profession as a cook. Kathy spoke with some incomprehensible excitement. So Emily looked at her friend with surprise. Why do we need her? Just for fun. And then, in a small company, there should always be a person responsible for the comfort of the others. It seems to me, Maria is optimally suited for the role of a caring cowgirl. She's the kind of person who's happy to take on that kind of responsibility. Cranberry thought to herself after a short pause, said with a sigh, "No, this is definitely a diff number. Maria won't leave her grandmother." Kathy held out her hand with a guy. "I'm breaking it in, Granny. I had her walk her granddaughter into town." Emily looked at her friend's hand and hesitantly held out her own. "It's a hopeless gamble. Time will tell what we're betting on." Emily wasn't sure, mumbled, "Let's go for a bottle of cognac." Kathy poked, "I suggest we put a case of champagne on the line as well." Emily was certain that Maria would not budge. She firmly clapped Kathy's hand visibly. They switched to more pleasant topics. Under the sun, the champagne hit the girls' heads hard, and they were up to their necks by the throats or songs. Engrossed in the girls' vocal creativity, they didn't notice Maria walk by. At first, Maria wanted to approach her former classmates. She was eager to ask Susha Kathy about life in the city, but seeing the state of the girl, she changed her mind and hurried to the village. Despite the brain-burning heat, and drank champagne. The school chums did not forget about the bet they had made. Already the next morning, Kathy dropped by Emily, but since she had not cooled down after yesterday, Emily didn't realize at once what Kathy was implying. There were so many different things that happened yesterday. For example, the neighbor's pig ran away, and Betty had had her plow stolen right out of the yard by an unknown villain. Kathy squealed. Emily's already thin lips don't pretend you don't understand. I'm asking you directly about our argument without innuendo. Do you remember the bet we made by the river? I'm interested in this question. Do you still want to put on a great show, or are you going to back out? And what else? She never backed down, and I will also go to the end. The girl said this slogan quite cheerfully, though her eyes no longer had the fire of yesterday. She looked at her friend pleadingly. Kathy, maybe we shouldn't have this argument. Imagine if we had to put up with Maria for a few months. She's like a drag, isn't she? It's tedious and monotonous. But she'll be the one to pull chestnuts out of the fire for us. And that's worth putting up with her company for a little while. But if you don't want to continue this sociological experiment, we can cancel the bet. By mutual consent, but you do realize you'll be considered the loser. So that leaves you with a case of champagne. Emily very emotionally remarked, Kathy, did you come up with these rules yourself? Tell me, do you have the same attitude towards me as you do towards one? You consider me as a guinea pig too. Kathy wiped more on his eyes. How could you think such a thing? You're my closest friend, but you know all about that. Let's not make a big deal out of it. Let's go over to Maria's right now and talk to her. Okay, let's go. Kathy was the first to jump out. They clung to her reluctantly. The village, a novelty, occupied an area equal to an urban settlement, but the whole inconvenience was that it stretched for several kilometers along the river. The terrain was in places, and therefore the trek from one end of the settlement to the other took a decent amount of time. The logistics were also affected by the water barrier. Therefore, villagers for a long time used all possible means of transportation, including boats and even homemade rafts, to simply go to the store or visit relatives. Few people risked using the bridge, which did not inspire confidence because of its dilapidated condition, because an important issue needed to be resolved quickly. The girls dared to cross the river on the emergency bridge, and after only a quarter of an hour they were already at their destination. Miranda, Maria's grandmother, was in the yard when the unexpected guests arrived. Good health to you, Miranda, an elderly woman back, and you girls do not know any Roba. Kathy took over as negotiator. She winked at Nikita and burst out. Yes, we to Maria business is very important there is. You can call her. Miranda went to the wicket and pushed back the heavy iron bolt. You come into the house and talk to her there. Maria is just cleaning up, and there's no need to shout. I can hear everything perfectly well. The landlady's remark did not embarrass Kathy in the least. The girls thanked her for her warm welcome and followed her into the house. Maria was genuinely happy to see the guests. Oh, girls, be careful, because we're in a mess. I didn't know that my grandmother and I would have guests at such an early hour. You must be here on business. Although Maria was not beautiful, her cornflower-colored eyes were incredibly powerful. When she looked at her friends, they involuntarily moved under her gaze. Therefore, they immediately answered the question. This time it was Emily who entered the dialogue. Yes, Maria, we have a business to you for 1 million, or maybe even 2. We wanted to offer you to keep us company for the duration of the labor shift. Emily briefly recounted the gist of the matter. Of course, she made up a little for the colorful network. But even this subterfuge did not convince Maria. The girl plunged into reflection, and her classmates did not try to speed up the thought process because they were afraid to scare the game away. Of course, Maria had no idea what role was assigned to her by her former classmates, and she really wanted to try her luck in the city. Secretly, she herself had been making such plans for a long time. She could not take her household on her grandmother's shoulders. So after a long pause, Maria answered very calmly. Girls, thank you for the invitation, but I cannot leave now. Maybe in winter it will be possible, when there will be less work at home. And now, Emily. The guests did not expect to be rejected so soon and were ready to say goodbye. Miranda suddenly intervened. She was in the next room and therefore heard the whole conversation. The woman turned to her granddaughter, Maria. Do not hurry to refuse. Think carefully. I think you should take advantage of the offer of girlfriends. You see, in the village with work is very bad. Peter's business is going to go under today or tomorrow. What will we do then? We'll sit and grieve for the winter again. We'll eat potatoes all by ourselves. Maria's cheeks are flushed. Yes, I'm aware of Peter. We're all talking about his company going bankrupt, but nothing's gonna change until the fall. Grandma, I can't leave you in the middle of the season. And who will take hot lunches to the field? Miranda shook her hands, thinking that I was the only one. There's no one else in the village to feed the men. At least I'll go. You've written me off as an old woman too early. I'm only 65. And nowadays, that's no age for a woman. Visitor rejoiced at the unexpected support, and in two voices began to convince Maria. You with your specialty in the city can get a job at least in a cafe or even in a respectable restaurant, and you will always be fed. You will also earn money. Miranda said dreamily, we should buy a new TV set, because the old one doesn't turn on very often. That was the most convincing argument. And Maria agreed. Kathy immediately called someone and said that she would bring 2 school friends with her. She proudly said to the invisible person she was talking to, Alex, you said you needed a good cook, so I found a great specialist in borscht. And we cutlets. That girl has no bad habits and is single. Kathy disconnected the phone and happily announced, girls, 2 days to pack and we'll leave. Ignatievich promised to book us a good room in a hostel. Where? Kathy replied with a chuckle. A hostel is something between a dormitory and a hotel. The conditions are even better than in some houses. It's new to us. 2 days flew by like 1 hour. Miranda tried to prepare herself morally for a long separation from her granddaughter, but she had no idea how hard it is to let go of the person she raised from diapers. No one saw off her friends, and the old woman kissed all 3 of them and wished them good luck. At their station, the train stood for only 2 minutes, so the conductor dazed the girls. Come on, girls, jump into the carriage, or you'll be left behind. The girls with laughter and jokes dragged their suitcases and bags into the vestibule. Maria's eyes glistened with unsolicited tears. She sent air kisses to her grandmother, even as the train slowly pulled away. but the train was gaining speed with every second. The girl was already shouting at the top of her voice, "Grandmother, my beauty, I love you. I don't miss you more than anyone else in the world. I'll be there very soon." Miranda stood on the platform for a long time, gazing where the fast train had disappeared only a minute ago. 2 hot rivulets shot down her cheeks, but the woman did not notice the tears. She whispered softly, "Maria, my dear granddaughter, beating adversity." Buses to the village in the evening did not run, and Miranda decided to walk home. But no sooner had she left the station than she heard a familiar voice from behind. "Stop." The woman stopped, but did not turn around, because she recognized Anna's nasty voice. Anna was breathing noisily, but it did not prevent her from talking on the move. "What a motherfucker." She turned on the 4th speed like a sportswoman, "and I can't catch up with you." Miranda couldn't stand Anna, who was considered the village's chief storyteller. "She's pretty cold. Ask her, and what need made you run after her like I didn't borrow money from you, and you don't owe me anything." She stopped her unfriendly tone, gesticulating vigorously with her hands. She asked her friend snidely, "History repeats itself. What are you talking about?" Anna danced on the spot. "And your granddaughter Maria also went to the city for happiness. So did her mother. Look, Miranda, don't let her bring you a hem too." Anna appeared as if from inside her. The devil's power was spreading. "Why did you let the girl go with the goddess's daughter? Don't you know what heroics Kathy was famous for in town? The women said she worked at the club and was a man's girl." I'm so sorry." Miranda's grandmother spat and wanted to say something else, but Miranda rudely cut her off. "You saw her dancing on Anna," and shook her head negatively. Miranda kept stepping on it if she didn't see it. "Then why are you wasting your breath?" Grandma Anna moved on, but Miranda kept up. "Am I not telling the truth? Did your Anna, for example, give birth to a girl by her lawful husband? No, she took a baby out on the town. They say that bad things are inherited. Your granddaughter could do the same." Miranda sharply turned around, and from here the crow old Chevaksar. "Of course, the child. It's better to follow your grandson. Look, he is more likely to you. She makes illegitimate granddaughter, because she gets mixed up with anyone." Miranda shook her hands up in hysterics. "It's all hearsay. Our Sam is smart and decent. He graduated from an institute, not like your granddaughter. You're the one who's jealous that he doesn't pay attention to your Maria. That was out of line. And Miranda has also changed to a more understandable Miranda and language for grandma. Yes, your Sam was pissing all the corners near our house out of grief, because my granddaughter pays no attention to him." October Pavlovna didn't expect such a turn. She wanted to say something scathing, but from nervous shock, she lost her breath. With her open mouth, she began to greedily gulp air, and Miranda feared for her life. "Maria, what's gotten into her heart? Should we call the paramedic station?" Miranda finally got over the shock, staring out of her eyes as she washed ashore. "Fish," she said in a hoarse voice, "fuck you and your granddaughter and the paramedic." The elderly scandalized woman for convincing once more savored spit on the road and walked past Miranda. But apparently, her ego did not give her rest, and stepping back at a decent distance, "She is a skilled medium," shouted. "If there is justice in this world, God will put everything in its place, and then we will see Anna." She never said what she wanted to see in the future. But Miranda was glad that the evil Silenko got off her back after the exchange of barbs. The woman still had a bad feeling in her heart. Miranda was a secretive person by nature. She never complained about her troubles and sorrows, which would have been enough for several human lives. Having lost her parents early, she alone put Miranda's 2 younger brothers on their feet. And even in her younger years, she took on any kind of work, and hard work. She was respected in her native village. For many years she headed the brigade, and later she was transferred to grain, where she worked until her well-deserved rest. One day the brigadier noticed the young combine operator Nick Maria and began actively courting the girl. Almost 2 years they met, and then quietly signed. A year later the couple had a boy, which Miranda in honor of his late father named James. After another 4 years in the family came a girl favorite father. Young parents gave all their strength to work. They really wanted their children did not need anything. Nick was especially far away in his dreams. Miranda, I want James and Wendy to get a good education. They will study and settle in the city and live in an apartment with all amenities. Then they will have families and bring their grandchildren to us for the summer. Miranda then laughed at Nick's husband to make your plans come true. You need the most important thing. The man has guessed the money without fail. Well, that won't be a problem. After all, you and I earn good money and the cow gives a substantial profit. The woman looked fondly at her husband. Of course, today you can't go anywhere without money. But Nick, about something else. It is necessary that the children themselves want to learn, to then use, so to speak, the fruits of their labors. Our son has no desire for knowledge. He spends his days bumming around. The man optimistically remarked, that will pass. You'll see. But the miraculous transformation didn't happen. James grew older and more out of hand. And in the last year of school, the boy in general threw out such numbers that not only the residents of the novelties, but the whole neighborhood was shocked. The apotheosis of his activity was a fatal incident, which is still remembered by the old-timers. In April, that is, exactly 2 months before graduation from high school, the eldest son, together with a group of peers, decided to party hard. Young people for courage a little drunk, and James's blood boiled. Guys were about to put on an exciting show. It's going to be an unusual race, and the winners will enjoy the company of the best girls in the world. There were 2 girls in the company who immediately squealed with delight. James was initially confident of his victory, and the unusual competition consisted in the fact that one of the participants sat behind the wheel of a car, and the rest had to overcome the distance on a bicycle. The winner was the one who managed to overtake the car. There was no problem with the bicycles, but the car was more difficult, and James was desperate for a rash move. He borrowed his father's car without asking. Parents were at work, and his father never hid the keys. Therefore, the guy calmly opened the garage. His father often during joint trips trusted him to drive the vehicle, and James was absolutely sure that his venture will not have dire consequences. His younger sister saw through the window and tried to stop him. James, I'm going to tell Daddy. The girl's appearance was not in James' plans, and he shouted at his daughter. Tell him what? That you took the car without asking. James took a swing at his sister, but she backed away from him and resentment receded. But in her eyes she wanted to get back at her brother for being rude. So James changed his tone. Rubberband promised didn't take to the road. Take a little ride on the old tractor, and I'll be back. Lone looked at her brother doubtfully. How long will it take you to get back? About 2 hours. Maybe sooner. You just don't say anything to Mom and Dad, and I'll give you the eternal use of my chips for your silence. James had long noticed his little sister looking at his collection. Her brother's promise made a strong impression, and she shut her mouth. The father was the first to come home from work, and immediately found the car missing. He immediately realized that it was his son who had stolen the car and promised to tear off his ears. But the head of the family could not fulfill this promise because the son did not show up even at night. The couple went round the entire village, but did not get any sensible information. Some saw Nick's car, but where was it going? They couldn't say for sure. The parents spent the night without sleep, and it was only in the morning that the lonely girl told under pressure that the elder brother was going to race on the old road yesterday. She saw her mother and father freaking out, but kept quiet and really wanted to get her hands on the collection. Miranda and Nick rushed in the direction indicated, but on the way they met the district officer, who took his eyes away, and then reported walking in the woods, found him in the morning. The doctors said there was little hope. He had lost a lot of blood. He was taken to the district hospital. The light faded in the eyes of the unfortunate mother, and she collapsed senseless on the ground. The doctors were powerless, and the 17-year-old boy died without regaining consciousness. The investigation lasted several months, All participants of the accident in one voice claimed that James himself was to blame for the incident. The guy was inexperienced, and during the chase he snapped on a turn in the quarry. The fall from a great height turned the car into a pile of iron. Having received serious injuries, the driver could not get out of the death trap for a long time. Participants of the dangerous contest instantly scattered, leaving the victim to his fate. The guy lay in the quarry until morning, where he was found by mushroomers. After the death of the eldest son in the Maria family came black days. Nick blamed himself for everything. If I had hidden the car keys, nothing would have happened. Miranda didn't try to change his mind and remained silent. But it was her silence that said that she, too, blamed her husband for the misfortune. This burden was unbearable, even for a strong man like Nick Maria. He began to drink heavily, and one day he appeared on the floor in an unconscious state and immediately passed out. Miranda didn't realize it until the next day. Toward lunchtime, she asked her daughter, "Miranda, go and see how Daddy is doing." The girl ran to her father's room, and from there she screamed, "Mommy, I'm afraid there's something wrong with Daddy. He's all cold." The man was only a few months shy of his 40th birthday. In the news, everybody felt sorry for Miranda. 2 deaths in 1 year. You wouldn't wish that on an enemy. But Miranda could not afford even a moment of weakness because she had to take care of her daughter. And she gave all her love and care to the lonely girl. But the daughter took her mother's sacrifice as the norm, and every day her demands to her parents increased. The girl believed that the mother should fulfill her every whim, but she herself at the same time forgot, even to say a simple, "Thank you." The women at work sympathized with the foreman. One of the oldest workers once told her, "Miranda, you shouldn't spoil your greengrocer so much. Children should be kept strict. You put a crown on your girl's head." The foreman didn't like the experienced woman's remark, and she defiantly said, "You keep your grandchildren in the hedgehogs, and remember, I do not need anyone's advice." No one else on the grain, and did not try to open her eyes to the real state of affairs. And the reality was that it wasn't long before everyone was pointing fingers at Miranda's daughter in the novelty section. Singleton graduated from high school with only 2 B's in her certificate. She easily entered the university, but after 6 months she was expelled for truancy. Rumors spread around the village that Xinu walks with grown men. And one day she herself showed up in a white car with a beau who was fit to be her grandfather. She introduced her mother to her companion as Mammy. "Mammy, meet my boyfriend." Not shying away from her guest, she pounced on her daughter. "Miranda, your beau Emily isn't exactly a beau. He's got sand coming out of one place. What do you need that old stump for?" The girl accused her mother of being an idiot, and together with her daddy immediately rolled back to the snow-white foreign car. But only a few months passed, and she reappeared in the village, but already with a young man, so her mother wouldn't think anything of it. She warned her mother right away, "Mom, this is my producer." The unfamiliar word stumped the woman, but she explained that she was taking vocal and dance lessons in the city and was going to perform abroad, or rather, in Turkish resorts. "Mom, you just don't worry. We have a whole group of girls, and we're not doing anything bad. We're just helping a celebrity perform." Wendy said the name of the artist, but Miranda had never heard of the singer. She tried to find out the details of her daughter's incomprehensible creative activity, but she, referring to the wild business, that same evening left alone. The man did not utter a single word during the whole time, but observing this visit from the side of the village women with certainty said, "Not of ours. This guy must be a Caucasian. Only there they live such a black guy." And Wendy didn't show up for a year. She'd call her mother once in a while, and in a happy voice she'd tell her Mammy, "I'm doing great. Don't worry. I'll be there soon." And her daughter kept her promise. Only the mother was not very happy about her arrival, and it was the ubiquitous Anna who informed her. She rolled into the house without knocking, along with clubs of ice-cold air. Then Mom, your greenery arrived. The woman rushed to the door, but Miranda, as if, by the way, and said, "Do not rejoice before time. It seems your little girl has arrived with a gift," she said, breaking the news. The chief gossip did not hurry to leave Maria's house, but Anna was burning with impatience. She wanted to see the meeting of mother and daughter herself, so that she could tell the gossips everything in great detail. He had a short half-coat of blood, which only further emphasized his fading belly. "Mom, here I am," by the confused look in her daughter's eyes. The woman understood everything without further words. "Come in, daughter." Why froze on the threshold? "You're home, and you have nothing to fear here." Anna expected anything, but not such a restrained welcome. After waiting a few more minutes, she got nothing and went home. 3 weeks later, Wendy gave birth to a baby girl. When the baby was brought home from the hospital, the new grandmother took a long look at her, and Miranda took her interest in her own way. "Mom, if you're trying to find a resemblance to someone you know, you're doing it wrong. You don't know Father Maria, and I hope you never find out about him." Miranda was shocked. How could it be like that? A child should have a father. Things happen in life, but there are always two parents. Miranda stared at one point and said angrily, "My daughter doesn't have a father, and I'm asking you very nicely, Mom, never to start a conversation with me on this subject. I wonder how you're going to raise a child alone. I'm not the first. I'm not the last to do it." The loner was determined. True, in her voice did not feel confident. During the whole year of her daughter diligently portrayed herself as a caring mother. She cooked ears, porridge, and mashed potatoes for little Maria. Every day she went for a walk with her. Miranda began to calm down little by little and already dreamed that her daughter would have a better life. During her lunch break, she shared with the women workers. "Many women raise their children without help. A single woman has me. As soon as Maria grows up a little, Miranda will go to correspondence school. And then maybe she'll meet a good man." The elderly coworker, who had earlier advised her to open her eyes with doubt, shook her head. "It's fresh. Yes, it's hard to believe. Miranda, don't think I'm saying anything against your Wendy." But the girl said that she had her husband's husband on her neck, the chief accountant, and a baby's no big deal. When there's an itch in one place, don't let it get out of hand. In the evening, there was a confrontation. Miranda demanded that her daughter end the relationship. "And Wendy, you're not only embarrassing yourself, you're embarrassing me. Think of your daughter. What will people say when she grows up?" The young mom didn't like the tone of the conversation and started yelling at the mother. "Don't go where you're not asked. This is my life, and only I will dispose of it. I'm sick of all this." "What are you sick of?" "Everything. This miserable village, and you, and your moralizing." The high-pitched talk frightened little Maria, and the girl cried. But Wendy did not hurry to calm her daughter. For a few seconds, she paced around the room, and then jumped out into the street. All night she called someone, and in the morning she said, "I found a job in the city, but you realize that with a small child I have nothing to do there." Miranda tensed up. "What are you going to do? Rent a baby home for a while?" "I've heard that's what a lot of single moms do." Wendy was talking and getting stronger at the same time. The mother's patience was wearing thin. "Stop it. I'm not gonna let you abuse my granddaughter. Get the hell out of here and don't show your face to me again. I'll have your parental rights revoked." Her mother's threats did not frighten the young woman. On the contrary, she was happy and began to pack her things. Miranda watched her daughter and could not believe that all this was happening on his little one. Maria was merrily babbling to herself, paying no attention to the adults. But when Wendy packed a travel bag, the girl reached out to her hands. Mom, Wendy indifferent. What threw her daughter in a bad cheek? "Daughter, Mommy has to go, earn money. When there's plenty of money, I'll come and take you with me, while you stay here with Grandma." And Wendy went all giddy. She hesitantly grasped the doorknob. "Mom, you're not going to give me a ride, are you?" Miranda took the bills out of her purse and silently handed them to her daughter. She wanted very much to stop Wendy at that moment, to ask her to come to her senses. But resentment toward her daughter prevented her from taking that step. For almost 2 years, there was no news from Wendy. Maria grew up, pleasing her grandmother with her little successes. But one winter, just before Christmas, they had a guest, in which the woman did not immediately recognize the producer Leo. The man came into the house and sat down on a chair without invitation. With a barely perceptible accent, he said, "Miranda, unfortunately, I have come to you with bad news. Wendy is gone. She's dead." The woman joined the wall to keep from falling. "How dead? I've never even had her with a cold. You must have conspired and decided to play a joke on me." Leo said just as flatly, "You don't joke about things like that. Wendy had the flu, but she didn't want to be treated, and the illness gave her complications. I don't know much about medicine, but what a severe form of pneumonia it is. Where do you want to bury your daughter?" Leo helped Miranda with the funeral and left her a decent amount of money. Saying goodbye, he said, "If you have any difficulties, give me a call. I have to tell you that I loved Wendy, but I couldn't leave my family. We have very strict laws." It was only when the taciturn man left that Miranda realized she had never asked him about her daughter's occupation. She never showed up again, and she didn't try to find him. Miranda decided to devote the rest of her life entirely to her granddaughter. She protected the girl from bad rumors and harmful influences as best she could. Her grandmother told Maria different stories about her dead mother, and the girl believed that her mother was an artist and toured the country. Maria sat in the waiting room and stared blankly at the people who ran past her with suitcases and bags. She, too, had to urgently determine what to do next. But Emily could not solve this difficult task. The obsessive thought that was beating painfully at her temple prevented her from concentrating. You know exactly what Kathy represents, and you trusted her anyway, now reaping the rewards of her foolishness. The new unfamiliar life that had begun so fabulously that summer evening when her school friends had invited her to go out on the town with them was suddenly cut short. All the way the girls discussed how they would work. Maria was full of hope and made the most fantastic plans and hopes for the future. The very Alex whom Kathy had called at the time welcomed her with open arms. "We need a cook. I hope you know how to bake pancakes." Maria nodded happily and wanted to tell him about her cooking skills, but the man hastily stopped her. "I would love to hear about your accomplishments, but I have such a job that every second is precious. You'll tell me everything on the spot. This place is private and reputable, so you're gonna go for your medical exam, and then we'll get you properly registered." Maria had never been to a big city before and was confused. "But I don't know anything here. I would like to be together with the girls." Alex frowned his eyebrows unhappily. "Your girlfriends will go to work elsewhere, but you will live in the same room. I've already arranged everything." Seeing that Maria still hasn't moved, the manager said doomedly, "Well, what is it? Do I have to lead everyone by the hand? Okay, now we'll think of something." Wait, a little in the corridor was not less than an hour, and Alex again invited Maria into the office, where opposite him sat a girl and wrote something quickly. "Maria, hear you about the counselors together past the commission, and then come here." Only in the evening, tired and hungry, Maria got to the hostel. Emily and Kathy had already settled in the room and greeted her with enthusiastic shouts. "We've already lost you. We're starving," Maria muttered unhappily. "Then you should have cooked your own food." Kathy lazily got up from the bed. "Oh, why should we waste our energy when we have our own personal cook?" "Maria, let's make a deal. Emily and I keep order, and you cook meals for 3. Deal?" Maria didn't suspect anything wrong and agreed to this arrangement. She only asked about groceries. "How much we'll buy with?" "We'll fold." Emily answered that question. "Of course, as soon as they give us an advance payment, they immediately discount 100. And you buy your own groceries." A day went by, then a week. But the girls still hadn't contributed their share to the common purse. Emily, almost crying, said one night, "Maria, you have no idea where Kathy and I are. We're fined every step of the way. You can't even go to the bathroom. Maria, you buy everything and we'll reimburse you later." Maria got up at dawn and prepared breakfast and lunch. After the labor shift, she could not feel her legs, but in general, her hungry friends were waiting for her. If in the first 2 weeks, they almost every day remembered about the debt, then at the end of the month, they forgot about the fact that they lived at someone else's expense. Maria could not wait for the end of the shift and thought that she would never contact her former classmates again. But the last day of the month came, and the commandant knocked on the room. "Girls, today is the last day. Let's pay your rent real quick." Kathy started crying again. "Oh, we didn't get our paychecks today." "Tomorrow," the commandant. "I've been keeping up." "That's your problem. If you don't pay today, I won't let you in tomorrow. You have an entrance." Maria went to her wallet. "Okay, girls, I'll pay for you, and you'll give me everything tomorrow." The friends read happily. "Maria, we'll pay you back every penny, and we'll even add on the commission. Have you gotten your settlement yet?" "Yes, but to be honest, I expected more." "So you didn't like the job?" "No, I'll look for another place. I made a conspiratorial promise I'll keep quiet." "Here's to you." He always has something interesting in store for his friends. Maria decided to take a shower before going to bed. When she returned to the room, her friends were already gone. On the dining room table was a note saying goodbye to the market and a fiery hello to Grandma. Swayed under Maria's feet, she felt uneasy and decided to check her purse, but there was not even a trifle there. The girl shouted in despair, "Bastards, all raked out. What am I going to do now?" She still had hope that Alex would agree to extend the contract with her. And in the morning, she went to her former place of work, but there was already a new employee in the kitchen. The girl went to Alex, but he was not there. She went back to the hostel, but the commandant didn't let her in. "I've already put other tenants in your room. If you want, I can offer you a one-person suite. It's empty, but you'll have to pay in advance," Maria begs. "You let me in, and I'll pay you later. I just don't have any money right now." "Where'd you put it, sweetheart? You just got your paycheck yesterday." The commandant stared at the girl, frequently blinking her eyelashes, on which mascara hung in pieces. Maria dejectedly said, "They took away all my money, not even the change left." The woman's face flashed like a torch. "What insolence! Are you saying that we have criminals here? Well, get out of here, and don't show your face to me again." To evict undesirable dwellings, the commandant used not only words but also brute force. She began to push the girl out the door of her establishment. Following Maria out flew her suitcase and travel bag. She was caught with it and zipped out. The girl, right at the entrance, checked her things and knocked on the door. "There's my pot left in the kitchen. Give it back, please." 5 minutes passed, and someone's hand threw a dish rag through the window. Maria picked up her belongings and wandered to the bus stop. For the first time in her life, she was riding public transportation without a ticket. But surprisingly, she was not tormented by remorse. The girl's brain was working in emergency mode, trying to find a way out of the situation. In such a state, she almost fell under the wheels of a huge car at the station. Saved from injury was the fact that the car was moving at minimum speed and only slightly its side was sinking. Finding herself on the hood of the Jeep, Maria screamed with fright, "Oh, Monty!" The driver who jumped out of the car jumped on her. "Where are you going? You're stupid. You're still carrying your suitcases. You've dented my whole car." The indignant driver could not stop and said everything that the culprit of the accident thought. Probably, he would have talked for a long time. But the flow of swear words was interrupted by a respectable-looking man who also got out of the car. He calmly, but rather strictly ordered the driver, "Ethan, don't shout. It is not worth attracting unnecessary attention." The driver, excusing himself, pointed to the dent on the hood. "Zach, look what she has done. At whose expense are the repairs? Repairs are nothing. The main thing is that no one was hurt in the collision. Young lady, are you feeling all right?" Maria didn't realize the question was addressed to her. Only when the status passenger of the Jeep repeatedly asked her how she was feeling. She quietly said, "Don't worry, I'm fine." "Please excuse me. I was just thinking and didn't notice your car." The traffic jam didn't last more than a minute. But for city traffic, that's too much time wasted on all sides. The klaxons sounded at different harmonies, and Maria hurried away from the scene of the collision with the Jeep. She ran to the station without turning back, and an inner voice reproachfully told her, "Well, almost hit by a car. You should be more careful. This is not a village with only one road." As the girl still hadn't decided what to do next, she made her way to the waiting room. After sitting for 2 hours in a fruitless search for a solution, she wanted to call her grandmother to send her some money for the trip, but the cell phone gave no sign of life. The girl muttered annoyingly, "Damn, I forgot to charge it yesterday." By the evening, the human flow increased and many future ex-passengers went straight to the buffet. Very quickly, a decent coup formed there. Maria was suddenly struck with an idea that seemed worthwhile to her at once. She picked up her luggage and headed towards the buffet. The crew was bubbling with indignation, as everyone thought that Maria was trying to break the strict order, and comrade is not where you go. "What are you, special? Get in line." The barmaid also shouted at her, "Girl, have a conscience. You shouldn't be so eager. I'm not going to serve you without waiting in line." Despite the threatening shouts, Maria still came to the counter and, looking straight in the eyes, the barmaid said, "Auntie, I don't need your pies." The barmaid was puzzled. "Then why did you push your way in? Let me help you. I'm a general cook and I know how to do everything." The caterer got suspicious. "And why did you suddenly decide to help me?" "I need money for the road. They took my money." She did not have time to tell about her trouble because the barmaid agreed with the siren. "Stephen, come to the buffet immediately." A policeman came out of the ground. "What's the problem?" The aunt nodded toward Maria, who was still smiling naively. "Look at this young swindler who got money from me." Maria could not believe her ears. She swiveled her head, expecting support, but the whole line was on the side. The barmaid. Somebody even shouted, "Get that sheep out of here. People want something to eat, and she's making a circus out of it." The policeman took the girl under his arm and politely offered to come with me. "Why? I didn't do anything wrong. I just offered my help. Come on, we'll sort it out." The girl tried to free herself from the clutches of the policeman, but all her attempts were in vain. The polite tone of the station orderlies changed to rudeness. Stephen even shouted at her, "You can get 15 days for resisting. It is better to behave quietly and do not kick." Unkind premonitions, nauseous, and a wave rolled to the girl's throat. And at that moment, the very man from the car Maria fell on appeared. "What's going on here?" Stephen immediately recognized this man and began to explain to him with subservience. "Zach, this is the girl. You were money to me, so I was obliged to stop this activity." The man grimaced. "Tell someone else about your vigilance and responsibility. I know who does this kind of activity around here." While the senior lieutenant was thinking what to answer, status to the young citizen Zach, and in a commanding voice ordered him to let the girl go. Maria felt the policeman's hand clench. Zach lifted the girl's suitcase. "This is your luggage." Maria nodded affirmatively, and her savior confidently followed to the exit. The girl did not immediately notice that he was followed by the driver who had recently called her all sorts of names. She had no choice but to follow the men. Thanks to her grandmother's and Maria's upbringing, she had learned in her early childhood that one should not get into a car with strangers. One should be especially cautious with men. Zach inspired confidence, so for the first time in her life, she disregarded these rules. However, getting into the car, the girl asked where we were going just in case. The man half-turned to her. "And that's for you and me to decide. But first, you will tell me what happened to you." Maria briefly told how she and her friends came to the city to earn money and how her classmates robbed her when they found out that she came from the village. Zach rejoiced. "But I, too, grew up in the backwoods. It was later that I was brought to the surface of the turbulent stream. I started my life in a small village. Of course, life there was not sweet, but it left many memories dear to my heart. You know, we had a separate schedule, and everyone took turns for a day or two to become deeds. The man smiled and continued. I remember how during one such duty I was examined by a sleeper, and while I was dozing on the grass, there was a cow missing. She had a bright name, Carmen, as they say now. The owner called her that for fun, because the cow had a temper. Suddenly, Ethan, the driver, spoke up. I hope you found it. Zach advised the driver. You watched the road. I didn't find the cow, and my father beat me with a belt, so I couldn't sit down for 2 weeks. But Carmen showed up at night, so the punishment was unfair. The master showed him his fist. There was silence in the Jeep for a few minutes. Maria guessed that Zach was thinking about how to help her. She hesitantly said, I'll take any job. I can even clean. We'll decide that tomorrow. In the meantime, sleep at my house. This decision sounded like an order, and the girl obediently followed the man to the house, which was located in a village not far from the city. They were met at the entrance by an elderly woman, whom the owner asked, show this young lady to her room and feed her. The woman silently led Maria to the second floor. Here is your room. I'll bring dinner a little later. Maria, in a day tired from worries, so much that at once fell unconscious and asleep, and she dreamed something, but she remembered nothing of the night's adventures. In the morning, she was awakened. A woman brought her breakfast on a tray and told her Zach would be waiting for you in 15 minutes in the lobby on the first floor. Maria felt like a movie heroine caught in a fairy tale, and she wanted very much to enjoy the comforts of a rich house, but time did not allow her to relax. Swallowed 2 fresh pieces of toast and a cup of coffee. She hurried downstairs. Zach was already waiting for her. Good morning, dear young lady. I've been doing some research at my leisure, and I can tell you that there's been some progress in your complicated case. As the man spoke in the old-fashioned manner, the girl could hardly understand the meaning of what he said. She tensed and waited for her benefactor to say the main thing. And that moment came. Zach's rejection lingered and continued his speech. Perhaps you, Maria, will not like my proposal, but at the moment there is only this option. My sister-in-law the other day calculated her cook and now in search of a new worker. The girl was delighted, exclaimed, I agree. Zach made a warning gesture. Are you in a hurry? You didn't let me get my point across. This is a very important and perhaps key point. The fact is that my daughter-in-law's temper is, to put it mildly, not tolerable. The servants in their house don't last more than 2 or 3 months. Maria again optimistically stated, I can take it. I'm very patient. If so, then let's go meet your new employers. Zach dialed a number and clearly said, David, be home. Bringing you a new cook. No, it's better to send somewhere for a while. She scares the girl. A very young girl of about 20. The girl felt a little uncomfortable that she was being discussed in her presence, but she pretended not to notice this tactlessness. They drove the Jeep again. Only now Zach himself was behind the wheel. On the way, he talked a little about his son. David, my son is a professional athlete. He is a track and field athlete. He even took part in the Olympics, but won only silver. He really wanted to win gold, but a serious injury prevented him. So he had to say goodbye to big sports. He was going to go into coaching, but he didn't find himself in that field. He decided to follow in my footsteps, and I want to say that my son turned out to be a good businessman. But he didn't have much luck in his personal life. The man was silent, realizing that he had said too much. Maria realized that it was not in her position to ask questions, so she remained silent. The journey took a little more than an hour, and Maria was completely immersed in her unhappy thoughts. She shuddered when Zach announced, but here we are. The house of the businessman's son was so grand that Zach's own cottage looked very modest and pale in comparison. The owner of this estate also made a strong impression on the girl. He looked to be no more than 30 years old. His trim figure spoke of an athletic past. David first greeted his father warmly, and then turned to the girl. Don't be afraid, they don't bite here. Do you think that love lives in this bakehouse? It was said with pomp, and Maria especially remembered the last words and liked the expression about the house where love lives. It was then that she realized that she too wanted to live in such a house and give her love to a man who reciprocated it. But then that phrase took on a very different meaning. While I was talking to my father, Maria was looking at the young businessman's home with interest. In the middle of the tour, David's wife appeared. She politely said hello to the light, and then asked, "Well, where is it? A country wonder who can cook." Zach called out to the girl, "Maria, come here." Vanessa made it clear that she was the one who decided everything. Maria timidly looked at this young, well-groomed woman and froze, waiting for the decision of her fate. The hostess began to look at her as if she was not a living person, but a museum piece. But apparently, she was completely satisfied with the results of the examination, because she asked more gently, "How do you like our house?" Maria stammered and answered that it was great. Vanessa liked the answer and invited her into the kitchen. "Then come with me, and I will show you your workplace. I hope you like it too. Aren't you men bored yet?" The kitchen was astonishingly large. The hostess watched the expression on the girl's face intently, noticing that this room caused her to admire it as well. She remarked rather peacefully, "And I'm not used to prying into people's souls, so I won't bombard you with questions. The main thing for me is the professional qualities of my employees. Don't take offense, Maria, but we are going to arrange a small exam for you. Prepare a few dishes that you do best with what you have in the fridge." The kitchen at Zach's house was equipped with the latest technology. Maria knew how to handle those appliances and quickly prepared dinner. Zach was very worried about his protege and decided to stay for the tasting. Maria passed the first test successfully. This could be judged by the empty plates on the table, but it was important for her to hear the opinion of the strict hostess. Vanessa appeared in the kitchen when Maria was getting the dishes. The hostess was surprised. "There is a dishwashing machine in the house. Why don't you use it?" "I don't really trust machines. It's more reliable to wash by hand. Please, how do you prefer?" The hostess sat on the poof. "I must admit, you've made me very happy. Everything is delicious, hearty. But I must tell you that from time to time I'm on a diet, so on such days you'll cook for me separately." "Okay, if you say so." Vanessa grinned. "Maria, you always agree with everything." "Not always, but I think the master's words are of paramount importance. You have the right attitude. We might even become friends. You can't imagine how boring it is. Living here, having fun has long since become boring. I want new acquaintances and bright impressions, but that's off limits for me for now. The fact that my husband and I are waiting for the appearance of the little one." Maria's lips stretched in a smile. "How great that you will have a baby." Apparently, the young mistress really longed for live communication, so she revealed all the secrets to the new cook. "You know, we had a few years of nothing, and we decided to Vanessa. You've heard of this method." "Of course I have. But it must be very expensive." "You guessed it. It's not cheap. But what can you do to make a family happy? My husband is delirious. He's dying to have an heir. And I have to agree. Otherwise." Vanessa did not say what awaited her if she did not fulfill her husband's demand. She left the kitchen, leaving the young cook alone with her thoughts. Maria was pleased with her first day on the job. She especially enjoyed the frank conversation she had with her mistress before going to bed. She was carried away by dreams of the distant future. She saw herself as the mistress of a beautiful house, drowning in flowers. And next to her was a man very much like David. Although Maria had a little life experience, she knew that it was better not to flash before the eyes of the owners. So from morning until late in the evening, she spent her time in the kitchen. Meanwhile, the young Zach's house lived its own life. One day, the young couple began to clarify their relations very loudly, and the fragments of their conversation reached the cook. That day, Maria realized that in the family of the owners, not everything is not so prosperous as it seems. David and loudly persuaded his wife, Vanessa. "It's like in sports, you have to believe in your victory, and you after the first failure immediately sour. The woman sharply objected to her husband, David. "I'm sick of you with your sport. Producing a child is not like running a 100-meter race for the best result. Realize that time is running out. I'm 32. Women have babies at 45. Just don't get discouraged." "David, what are you talking about? It's not like we can keep trying." Maria guessed that the hostess was not all well with the pregnancy, but she felt uncomfortable that she was an unwitting witness to their conversation. Trying to remain unnoticed, she crept into the kitchen. A few minutes later, the landlady appeared. "Maria, pour some wine into my glass." The girl darted her eyes out. "Vanessa, but you're not allowed." The hostess curled her lips into a sneer already allowed. It didn't work out with the pregnancy. Such bad luck. For almost 2 hours, the woman complained to the cook about her fate. During this time, she emptied the entire bottle and was about to start a new one. But her husband stopped her. "Vanessa, you're at it again. Go to your room to rest." The man took his wife out of the kitchen for the slightest of wine, but soon returned back. "Maria, you don't think anything of the sort. It's just that my wife is going through a very difficult time." "David, I don't think anything of the sort. In fact, what do you care what's going on in the head of an ordinary cook?" The landlord thought for a moment, and then agreed. "Indeed, there is no difference." The man nervously squeezed and then clenched his hands. "Excuse me, what to burden you with unnecessary conversations, but I just don't have anyone to share it with." "Do you have a wonderful father?" No, not at all. I can't even discuss such delicate subjects with him, but you can with me." "But I'm a complete stranger to you. That's the best part. You won't tell anyone about our family problem." "Of course I won't. What's the point of all this? I'm a simple cook and my business is to cook quality food." David's revitalized in that regard. "You, by the way, you're getting top marks. You're a really good cook and even Vanessa praises you. Sorry to interrupt your work. I'll go check on my bandits." The master left the kitchen. The short conversation with him made Maria think about David's words when he talked about his wife, and felt no warmth. Vanessa did not show any fervent feelings for her husband either. And this mutual indifference of young spouses was felt at a distance. In the girl's head ran the thought incomprehensible: why these people lived together? And they call their estate the House of Love. Love was not even close to being here. For about a week, Vanessa didn't come out of her hiding place. Maria brought food into her room. The landlady demanded wine every time, but David absolutely forbade giving her a drink. Caring for the unfortunate woman suddenly brought the master and the cook closer together. David came to the kitchen more often, and he was no longer as sad and withdrawn as before. Once he looked in on her out of habit and suggested that you had been living in our house for 3 months. "But I've never seen you resting. I would like to offer you a walk through these lovely places." The girl was confused, but the owner encouraged her. "Oh, come on. I promise I won't lead you into the dark forest. We'll just walk around a bit. We'll talk." "Vanessa, why is Vanessa nervous?" The man suddenly laughed. "I completely forgot that you adhere to traditional principles, which do not provide for any relationship between a married man and an unmarried girl." Maria became ashamed of her red thoughts, and she assured her host that David, I was not thinking of anything like that. I just have a lot of work to do. And for dinner I was going to cook fish according to a special recipe. You'll have time. I promise it'll be a short walk. The air here is unusually clean. And in the fall, this place looks especially fabulous. All girls dream of being in a fairy tale, so I'm offering you a little magical journey. David told her about his sports career and his father's business, and she listened to him with interest. Maria found it easy and pleasant to communicate with this man. In the evening, she was going over the memory of the walk with her host and felt happy. A few days later, David again invited her for a walk, and she gladly accepted his offer. Soon the walks in the park became regular, and the girl more and more often caught a glance from which her heart beat purified. She drove away from herself, the thought that behind her master's attentions lurked something other than ordinary politeness. But what disconcerted her most of all was the fact that Vanessa was indifferent to the rendezvous between her husband and the cook. At the end of October, the host announced that his wife was going on vacation. You see, Maria Vanessa has been through so much in the last few months. The stress has taken a toll on her health, so we decided that she needed to rest. The girl didn't understand why her master was telling her all this, and only agreed with him. She watched as David accompanied his wife to the airport. In the evening, he came back tired and went straight to the kitchen. "I've seen off my princess frog. Now I'll be waiting with you for her return. But I'm sure we won't be bored." Maria didn't say anything. It seemed strange to her again that her master was being frank with her. And in the evening, a strange uneasiness appeared, but the anxiety disappeared without a trace when the man invited her for another walk outside the house. Maria had always felt more secure than in the mansion. This time they walked longer than usual, and David behaved more relaxed with her. When they came across a creek, he lifted her in his arms without asking her consent and carried her across. The strong embrace of the man made the girl's soul tremble, but she could not and would not resist what was about to happen. At night, David opened the door to her room without knocking, and she could not utter a word out of excitement, only squeezed her eyes shut tighter. For the first time in her life, Maria woke up in the morning in a man's arms. David was still asleep. She admired his masculine features for a long time. Perhaps her gaze was too intense, because the man stirred restlessly and murmured, "You're a fantastic girl. I'm not looking for. No one has ever been as good as you." Those words were tantamount to a confession, and Maria realized that she had been in love with her master for a long time. She did not want to think about the consequences of a forbidden relationship. She wanted to enjoy the happiness that fate had given her so unexpectedly. 2 weeks flashed by like a day. Vanessa returned from vacation, looking beautiful and tanned. Maria did not immediately notice that her hostess was looking at her intently. The girl tried to ignore these looks and avoided even casual encounters with her master. But after a few weeks, she realized that the thing she feared most had happened. She had become pregnant by another man's husband. The realization of her sinfulness was so strong that Maria went blind. Her ill health caused a real commotion in the house. The first to worry was the landlady Vanessa, who entered her room warily and sat down on the edge of the bed. "Maria, did you scare us? I've called our family doctor. I want him to examine you." The girl was in a panic. She realized that an experienced doctor would immediately determine the cause of her ailment. "Vanessa, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just a little tired. No need for a doctor. You'll be fine tomorrow. We'll see how you feel tomorrow. In the meantime, you rest. My husband and I will have dinner at a restaurant tonight." The next day, Maria got out of bed with all her strength in her fist. But as soon as she entered the kitchen, an attack of nausea made her run to the bathroom. She wet her face with cold water, hoping it would help relieve the note. From somewhere in the back of her mind, a thought broke through. What are you going to do? Soon enough, it will all become visible, and you'll be put out on the street in disgrace. The girl realized that she had to tell Dmitri about the pregnancy, but she was very afraid of his reaction. But the meeting did take place. David appeared in the kitchen. He was in a good mood and immediately asked Maria, "How are you feeling? To be honest, you don't look too healthy." The girl was afraid to look him in the eyes and mumbled, "I'm all right. You needn't worry so much about me. But we're humans, not beasts. Although beasts are probably more worried about their tribesmen than humans, they are more likely to show selfless kindness and care. And I'd like to follow their example. Look outside the window. You see how beautiful the weather is." Maria realized what the master was getting at and refused. "No, not today. I'm in no mood to go outside. The man insisted you should get some fresh air. Otherwise you're in the kitchen. Why are you huffing and puffing?" He spoke deliberately loud. And the girl realized that Vanessa was aware of everything that was going on in the house. She obeyed her master's wishes without much reluctance. All right, and I'll get ready now. Autumn air really had a beneficial effect on the girl. They slowly passed the entire alley strewn with yellow leaves, and they were silent. The first to break the silence. David. Maria, I want to know what's going on. Confidence left the girl, and she burst into tears on the chest of her beloved. David, I don't know how it happened, but it seems, and she expected anything but what followed next. The man drew her to him and began to shower her face and head with kisses. Do you have no idea how happy I am? This is the most joyful news I have been waiting for so many years. Maria gently pulled away, but Vanessa how to tell her about it. Don't worry, we're good. This is a matter I will decide myself when the time comes. Maria calmed down a little and began to wait patiently for the denouement. But the days flew by and nothing changed. One day during a walk, the girl asked me how soon we would become noticeable. I can't live in ignorance. Don't rush things. The main thing is, don't think about anything bad. It's just not the time. And again, the monotonous days and weeks dragged on. Maria's figure became noticeably rounder. It was no longer possible to hide the pregnancy. Vanessa appeared in the kitchen, as always, unexpectedly. She sat down on her favorite. Maria, if I'm not mistaken, you're pregnant. The young cook almost fainted, so the hostess had to pick her up. Vanessa reproachfully remarked, why are you so overreacting? I'm not asking who the child's father is. I am not interested in such details. I'm concerned about something else. Where will you and the baby go? Do you think your grandmother will be happy to see you like this? Vanessa mimed a non-existent belly and stared at the cook. Why don't you say something? Maybe I want to help you. Maria could barely squeeze out. How can you help me? Good for you. Our conversation is becoming businesslike. That's a good sign. I think I'll have some wine. The hostess herself took out a beautiful bottle from the refrigerator and splashed some ruby liquid into a glass. Now we can get down to business. You are very young, and you still have everything ahead of you. That's why you don't need a baby right now. A baby would just tie you down. And you know my husband, and I have a problem with that. Maria shook his head. No, I won't give him to anyone for any money. Vanessa stood up and wanted to hug the girl, but she came back. The landlady looked at her contemptuously. Before 3, you'll be begging me to spare you the embarrassment. Think carefully and weigh the pros and cons. Vanessa left the kitchen, but her voice continued to echo in the unhappy girl's head. She didn't know what she should do. Now that her secrets were out in the open, there was no one to consult with either. Her inner voice told her that she should run away from this house sooner, but she couldn't make up her mind. David asked her to be patient. He said he would decide everything himself. She trusted this man. With such calm thoughts, Maria fell asleep. In the middle of the night, she woke up with an unbearable feeling of thirst. Barefoot, she went down the stairs to the first floor and was about to open the kitchen door when she noticed a streak of light coming from below. Anxiety took hold of her again, and she wanted to go back to her room. But from the kitchen came the voices of the owners. Vanessa spoke in a loud whisper. David, you did the right thing, though you could have warned me. The thought had crossed my mind more than once, but I was afraid you wouldn't agree to it. Only later, when this knave fool appeared in our house, I realized that it was our only chance. Maria held her breath and waited for her master's reply. But what he said defeated her some more. David tried to change his wife's mind. Vanessa, first of all, I can't do that, and you misunderstood everything. How else am I supposed to understand you? Are you really a serious businessman who is infatuated with this country girl? You're the one who can tell her fairy tales. I haven't believed in them for a long time. David was silent for a long time, and then he asked me how you were going to carry out your plan. Very simple. The baby will be born, and we will take it away. You are the father, and you have every right to decide and teach your child. Maria, What are you gonna tell her? I'm not going to explain anything to that girl. I'll kick her out if she starts something against us, which I doubt very much. No one will believe her anyway. Maria wanted to scream, but she covered her mouth with the palm of her hand so that not even her breath could be heard by the owners. The kitchen became quiet again, and then David hesitantly said, "I need to think about it." Maria heard footsteps approaching and hurried to hide. She could not hear the end of the conversation between the couple. She began to pack her things. In a moment of danger, the instinct of motherhood kicked in. The young woman began to look for ways to save herself. During her time in Dumazak, she had well studied all the entrances and exits. She was not frightened. The night raged outside with bad weather. She threw on her cloak and stepped carefully to the back door. In a minute, she was already on the street. This time Maria had money. All she had to do was get to town. When she left Zach's house, her first inclination was to go to Zach for help, but she immediately dismissed that thought, imagining the eyes that David's father would look at her with. After all, she had confused and broken the taboo with a married man. The only way out was to return to the novelties, and Maria went to the train station. She bought a ticket at the ticket office and began to wait patiently for the train. Somewhere in the back of her mind was the hope that David had already discovered her absence and was searching for her. She imagined that he would show up at the station and tell her that what she had heard was not true. But the hands on the big station clock moved inexorably forward, and the man she had foolishly believed in, he never showed up. Soon boarding was announced, and the future mother hurried to the platform. And it was frightening to imagine how her grandmother would meet her and what they would say about her in the village. She settled down on the bottom shelf and, stroking her belly, whispered silently, "And why are we small? You and I will be fine. People judge a little and calm down." That's how Vanessa dreamed, only she had a snake's head. The mistress reached out to her with tentacle-like hands and demanded that she give me the baby. "It's mine." Maria struck at those hands, but her blows didn't reach the target. Someone started to shake her. "Girl, wake up. You're scaring the whole carriage." Maria opened her eyes and didn't realize where she was. The conductor advised her, "Would you lie down? It's not very comfortable to sleep in your sitting position. That's why you dream all sorts of horrors." Maria thanked the kind woman for her care and settled down on the bottom shelf. She no longer dreamed of Vanessa's snake hands. She saw her grandmother, who was so habitually busy in the kitchen. "It's all right, granddaughter. What's this grief? Gossip comes like the wind and vanishes without a trace. And so rumors rustle on, and soon they'll be forgotten." The station was not crowded in the morning. Maria only now remembered that she had not eaten anything since yesterday. She went with her suitcase to the cafeteria. The barmaid glared at her with curious eyes and sighed. The girl thanked her and went on her way. At first, she wanted to get to her house by cab, but then she changed her mind. Whatever would happen, there was no hiding anything anymore anyway. The first one on her way was Anna, a nasty old woman stunned. And when the initial shock wore off, she screamed all over the street, "Look, those people are kind." And the pitchforks poured from downstairs. I told Miranda the bad blood was bound to show. Maria wanted to go around the gossip girl, but she stood in the middle of the road. "So, did you have a nice life in the city?" The witch muttered angrily to herself. But Miranda was just waiting for that. And she's on a roll. "Look, she's calling me names. If I'm a witch, what are you? I'll tell you what you are. A whore." But even this time her words did not reach the target. Maria still bypassed the old woman, while she and the old curses, but her black work grandmother Miranda has already managed to do, and look at her granddaughter Maria, and all the free from housework inhabitants of the street. Some went away and aghast, pitying Maria, and some of them snapped at her with barbs. With all her might the unhappy girl tried to hold back her tears, and only when she was on the threshold of her grandmother's house, she burst into tears. Miranda rushed to comfort her granddaughter. "It's good that you came. Your friends have told me so much about you. But I don't believe a word they say. Don't tear your heart out. You can't be upset right now. You can tell me later, and we'll figure out what to do together." Although Maria was still under the impression of the stormy meeting, she noted that her grandmother was saying the same words as the kind sack, and remembering this man and her shattered hopes, the girl's tears flowed even more deeply. Miranda cost a great effort to calm her granddaughter, but no sooner had Maria a little come to her senses than Anna quietly fell into the house. And I'll tell you this, Miranda, that it was to be expected. Your Maria walked through the village with her head held high, but she came back with her tail between her legs, and you're defending her. Miranda said tiredly, "Who am I defending? You? I don't need your protection. I have a son and a grandson. Now we'll see who's whose corners." Deceptive. Miranda grabbed a poker and moved toward Anna. She squealed in horror. "You are definitely insane. I'll be sure to file a report on you for threatening me." The door slammed loudly, and Miranda ran down the street. Miranda sank down on the chair next to her granddaughter. "It's okay, Maria. We'll get through this trouble. The main thing is that we are together. Everything else is nothing." The novelties raged for another week or so, and then everything quieted down. Maria in the native house little by little came to herself, but she still for a long time did not dare to show herself on the street. But the voluntary shuddering did nothing to deprive her of the latest news. From her grandmother, she learned that Peter's farm had finally gone bankrupt, and the farm was being sold under the hammer. "Maria, I saw with my own eyes the new owner, such a representative man. And his car is expensive, all gleaming." Maria was least interested in the future of Peter from the farm. But out of respect for her grandmother, she supported the conversation grandma. "Nowadays, every other man in town has one of these cars. My master and his father also have such cars. They live richly there. They do not deny themselves anything." The girl had already shared her misfortunes with her grandmother. She didn't hide her love story either. That's why Miranda regretfully remarked that you should have run away. You could have demanded alimony from that businessman. Why? Since he's the father, let him help raise the child. Maria grimaced. "Grandma, how can't you realize that they conspired with my wife to take the baby away from me? That's why I ran away." But he didn't refuse the child. On the contrary, he was very happy when I told him. Miranda waved her hands. "God, the world must have turned upside down to see such outrages. I don't understand how a child can be taken away from its mother." Vanessa knew the answer to this question when she discovered the disappearance of the young cook and became furious. In a fit of bad feelings, the woman lashed out at her husband. "This is all your fault, David. I'm sure you let that fool in on our plans, and that's why she ran away." The man was himself shocked by the recent events and asked irritably, "What do you want me to do? Don't you understand? Everything you need to chew and put in your mouth. Try to find your Maria, to persuade her." The man took a long look Pelosi in the face of the woman with whom he lived almost 8 years. "Vanessa, I have another option, and it is much simpler and more rational than yours. I think it's the right thing to do if you and I break up. You can see for yourself that our married life is not working out. You and I are different, like we're from different planets." Vanessa didn't expect such a turn. First, she closed with hysterical laughter, and then began to openly threaten her husband, "Not even dreaming of getting rid of me. You've got the wrong woman. If you dream of finding your cook and link your life with her, then I'll make you something you'll forget. Your name." David looked at his wife with regret. "Why didn't I see you before? You are a primitive creature, like a worm or a jellyfish. You can threaten me all you want, but all your words mean nothing to me now. And if you want a share of the business, you might want to curb your appetite, because you're not gonna get anything. We'll see about that." The next day, David discovered his wife had disappeared from the house. Her belongings were still in the same place. The man realized that he had been blinded by the woman's anger and decided to take revenge on Maria. He was very worried about the life of this humble girl. His unborn child had to do something. He perfectly understood that Vanessa, who is accustomed to luxury, will go for anything, just not to change her lifestyle. Of course, with rage she did not realize that sooner or later everything would come to light. Therefore, Dmitri needed to take care not only of Maria, but also of Vanessa, so she wouldn't do anything stupid. He paced the room. As it happened, yesterday he had vowed to help his father with his new business. In his old age, Dad had taken up farming. He had been talking about it for a long time, and he and David had even made some calculations. But David didn't think his father would find a suitable farm so quickly. David wouldn't say that he didn't like the countryside. He did, but on a tour and nature level. He would have supported his father in any case, and after his revelation that he would like to grow old in the village, David said that Dad could always rely on him. Although, by and large, Dad would do just fine without his help. After all, it was his father, not David, who started the business in their family. And David was also taught and guided by his father. They always had a very warm relationship. Mom did not become early, and it brought them even closer together. And now David realized he needed to go to his father for advice. He knew that Vanessa had never liked Dad, but Dad had been very tactful not to interfere in their relationship. David grabbed the phone. Dad, hi. Where are you? Oh, David was just about to call you so you didn't have to come to my farm. I'm back in town because I've got some things to take care of here. I'm gonna go shopping for building supplies. You're all right. You sound a little worried. I don't know how to say this. Dad, I didn't need to talk to you. So come over. What's the matter? Let's do it at our restaurant in an hour. Okay, I'll be there, Dad. David knew perfectly well that his father wouldn't pat him on the head for Maria. Moreover, he would scold him in any case, even if Maria herself threw herself on his neck. Now, however, the situation had turned out to be very strange. Only after Maria had disappeared did David suddenly realize that he absolutely had to find her. And he also realized that all this semblance of a family he had was worthless compared to what he felt for Maria, for their future child. David, how could you? Maria seemed like a very decent girl to me. Or was I wrong? David shook his head. No, Dad, you're not wrong. She's actually very nice. So, real. And I think she ran away for a reason. I have a suspicion that she overheard our conversation. Your conversation. What was so terrible about it? When David sighed and told me what the conversation was about, Zach even jumped. David, I can understand your wife's thoughts. I'm sorry. But how could you even think such a thing? By the way, where is Vanessa now? David sighed. So she's gone. I'm afraid she's decided to do something naughty, Maria. Zach landed on the chair with a thud. Then I don't understand why you're here and not at Maria's. You're about to curse again. Well, other than Maria being from the village, I don't know anything. She was hired by Vanessa. Vanessa looked at her credentials too, so your husband knows where to find her. David looked up to his father. Does it turn out that way? Shit, I'd overlooked that. We have to do something now. We should have done something right away. Sit down and let me think. David was quiet. He knew his father was a businessman for a reason. He'd started out not very legally, or rather, not at all legally. He never asked, but he knew that in the 90s everyone was afraid of Dad. It was then that my father literally for a year accumulated his capital, and then on it, and opened several companies. You don't have to be particularly gifted to realize that there was a bad trail of money behind his father's first money. Zach stood up and stood aside. He talked to someone on the phone for a long time, then called again. Finally, back at the table. But now he had to wait. Not half an hour later, his phone rang. Yes, I'm listening. He listened carefully to what he was told. Then he quickly looked at David and said into the phone, "We'll be there soon." David looked at his father in silence. But your wife was not so determined. Tell me she doesn't have a drinking problem. Oh, I see. Anyway, she's at the bar. She's a mess. Kathy and Emily Maria met a month after she arrived. Kathy was hanging on Sam's arm. "Oh, look at that, Marin with a potbelly." Emily picked up on it. "Yeah, who goes to town for what? Our Maria clearly doesn't work." The girl first wanted to pass by, but then stopped. "But the main thing is that not for that. Why are you here? Do you even realize that you are ordinary criminal?" Kathy let go of the hand of Sam, who listened with interest to their conversation. "You watch your mouth." "What am I watching? You took all the money out of my wallet, left me in a strange city with no money. I didn't even have enough for a ticket. And then you come around here and try to accuse me of something." Maria wanted to leave, but Kathy blocked her way. Maria sensed that Kathy was drunk. "No, stop. You have to take responsibility for what you say." Maria realized that this could end very badly. Emily was also looking at her belligerently. Of course, the girls were with Sam, and that made things worse. "Kathy, leave me alone, and you can keep my money." Maria took a step to the side and immediately felt a jolt. She couldn't stay on her feet and fell to the ground. A sharp pain shot through her back. She saw Kathy rush toward her, but Sam caught her. "You're crazy. She's pregnant." Kathy struggled out of his arms and screamed, "I don't care. I'm sick of her for saying that." Emily struggled to get her friend away, and Sam helped Maria up. "Let me walk you home." Maria gave him an angry look. "I don't need a counselor." Maria walked toward the house. Her back was aching and stiff. Sam shouted after her, "Don't think I didn't believe them right away." But Maria didn't turn around. By the time she got home, she was in a bad way. Her back was twisted and her stomach was tight. Maria cried. "I wish nothing had happened to the baby." Literally 100 meters from the house, she met a frosty con. Maria, gritting her teeth to herself, told herself not to get involved, to silently walk past. Anna threw her a glance and rested her arms at her sides. "Look at her, good people. Fetalized. You don't know where and from whom. She doesn't even think about the child." Ugh. Maria felt her eyes darken. "We just have to walk and walk home. There's not much left, just a little bit more." And there the grandmother on Anna and was not going to back down. She overtook Maria and stood in front of her again. "What's to see? It's embarrassing. And I told you, the apple doesn't fall from the tree. It's disgusting to look at. Good people, just admire it." People, of course, readily stopped, looked, shook their heads. Maria felt that the pain in her back was getting worse. She wanted to close her eyes and fall down. When she saw her grandmother running towards her at home, showing her handkerchief, "Granny," Miranda pushed a paw away and rushed to Maria. "Granddaughter, shall we go? Let's go home." Leaning on me, Maria immediately felt better because Grandma was beside her. She took a few steps and sank powerlessly to the ground. "I can't. Grandma, my legs won't hold." "What's wrong with you? It hurts. It hurts somewhere. Everything hurts. My back hurts a lot." Anna, though she looked at them with fright at that. "Maybe we need an ambulance." People were coming up to them. Few were smiling now. Some woman sat down, looked at Maria. It had been hurting for a long time. I fell down and everything hurt. Maria barely spoke. The pain pierced her with such force that she screamed. Miranda turned pale. "The ambulance will take at least an hour to get here, and then an hour back. Look, there goes that new farm owner. He's obviously going to town. Wait." There was a jeep on the road, though. He was already known in the village, but not many people saw the businessman himself. But who did? They said he was a very nice and polite man. The neighbors rushed in front of the car. The jeep stopped abruptly, and the driver, and then the businessman jumped out of it. The people took turns explaining to him what he needed. Finally, he nodded his head. The car pulled up beside Maria. She had little idea what was going on. Her grandmother brought a bag with her papers and got into the car. Next to her, the jeep moved abruptly and silently stared after her. Maria didn't fall down by herself. I saw Sam and Kathy and Emily push her. The girl got hurt. But it's not surprising on such a term. How could they not earn a term now? Anna, and quickly turned around talking. You hold your tongue. You'll earn a sentence yourself. She picked up her skirts and ran towards the house. The events had played out very strongly. Grandma wasn't ready for this. The news that Sam and her friends almost maimed the pregnant Maria quickly spread around the village. The guests immediately heard the father enter the house. Sam, motherfucker, come here. Sam came out of the room and looked at his father gloomily. Why are you yelling? Are you and your grandmother completely dead? What's it got to do with me? I'm going to give you a hard time, and fast. Don't tell anyone. I don't want to lose my job for the son of an asshole and my grandmother. Maria, I heard a familiar voice. Emily couldn't understand who it was. But the voice evoked a storm of emotion. Finally, she was able to open her eyes. In the front seat, a man was talking on the phone. Yes, black BMW. We'll be seeing you. Apparently explaining to the driver in the ambulance how not to let them pass. The man turned to the driver Ethan quickly but carefully realized I understood everything, Zach. Maria opened her eyes wider. No, this just can't be happening. Zach, please don't take my baby. The man turned sharply toward her. Maria, it's you. We've been looking all over for you. Maria cried. Stop. I won't give you my baby. Miranda looked surprised at Zach and her granddaughter. Maria, is that the baby's daddy? No, Grandma. This is Zach's grandfather. Turn to them. What kind of nonsense are you saying? Nobody's going to take the baby away from you. Jesus, this is messed up. Started slowing down. Zach. A man got out of the car. As soon as it stopped, immediately approached the doctor. Go to the private one. The doctor looked at him surprised. Who will take us there? They will. I'll follow you. The ambulance sirens were blaring ahead of Zach's car. As he followed, he dialed Godson's number. David, hey. Why do you sound so sad? No, I'm fine. Where are you? I'm David. I'm on my way to the hospital. I think I'll meet my grandson soon. There was a pause on the other end of the phone. Dad, you're okay. I'm fine. Maria's having a baby. Well, something happened, and she's in trouble. Come to the clinic. Zach's out. They drove to the clinic. Miranda returned by evening to the village neighbors looking out of their yards. But no one dared to ask how things were going. It was as if they hadn't done anything wrong, as if they'd been covered in mud. They attacked the girl, as if no one gives birth without husbands. It's all freezing. It muddies the water. They say the precinct built them houses, and they also say that these girlfriends have very unpleasant things ahead of them. Miranda arrived in the same Jeep she left in. This, of course, caused even more talk in the village, but knowing Miranda, everyone only exchanged news among themselves. In the evening, when it was already dark outside, there was a knock at the door. Miranda went to open the door. The police officer stood on the doorstep. Miranda, may I? Well, at least it's late for visits. I'm not here on an official visit. The policeman waved his hand and sat down at the table. Andrew, it happened that, how to tell you, Miranda, I probably came to apologize for myself and for the villagers. Miranda looked at him with interest. Kay, well, wait, I'll make you some tea. They sat opposite each other as Maria. It's all right, Maria. It's all turned out all right. Zach turned out to be a very good man and sent her to an expensive hospital. And the specialists there are good. The woman didn't give any details. She learned a long time ago not to say anything unnecessary. And always people turned everything in their own way. I brought money. What money? It's the same money that Emily and Kathy stole from Maria. They should be punished. Young fools. Maybe Maria will forgive them. Miranda shook her head. Nothing to do with them. She's too soft. And you, Andrew, don't do it for such people. The policeman stood up, looked at Miranda, and wouldn't go. Blimey. Yeah, she hung on mine. Sam's getting stronger. We're kind of getting married. I wish I hadn't seen them. I already talked to Anna. Thank you, Miranda. It was 3 days before Anna recovered from the beatings and went out again. She had one goal in mind. She had to punish this family, especially this Maria. She thinks she's a fool and Sam is a fool. She says I'm going to marry her. And I don't care if she's pregnant. He's a fool, all right. His mother put him in his place. Even if it's Kathy, it's not very nice. But at least she was smart enough not to bring him home. That silly slut still has to listen for her. No, that's not gonna work. And they're organizing something for this meeting. She'll remember it for a long time. The first thing Anna did was to find out when Maria was coming. There was no one to ask. So she went to the store. That's where everyone knows. The store was full, so she started from the door. What's the news in our village? What news? You're not here, Anna. There's no news. The woman got angry. Oh, how funny. Where would you all be if it weren't for me? I'm the only one who opens your eyes. People are soaked. You know something new. Otherwise, you wouldn't be talking like that. What don't you know? Maria will be discharged soon. They say she gave birth to Chernenko. People in the store aghast. How Chernenko on Anna under half of them. It's done. She won all the attention. Where did you get that, Anna? What do you mean? From where? From her girlfriends. Did you forget how they talked about her? How she was with everyone, just like her mom. People looked at each other. They'd never seen anything like that in the village before. It's not like Maria is like that. They're all like that, and then they're like that. What's there to think about? Soon she'll be discharged. She'll come, and we'll see for ourselves. It'll be a laugh like nothing we've ever seen in our village. Shame, and with shame. When she's discharged tomorrow, I guess. It turns out Miranda was at the store the other day, picking up some goodies. She said she'd be here at 3 o'clock tomorrow. And what's interesting is that she's not going to pick her up, but Maria is. Oh my God. And there's no one to greet her. Anna and Alive turned to the saleswoman. So what am I saying? That father must have left a long time ago. He doesn't know what's going on here. And this one's still walking around with his head up. What a disgrace. She's disgraced the whole village. But you, Anna, don't bend the village too much. And what about that Anna and the belly turned, saying what's wrong? Have you often seen children like that in the villages? So they'll come to us on a field trip. And you're sure that there is such a child? I'm not sure. Who knows who she was carrying? So I'll go to 3 tomorrow to look in you. And come. Anna jumped out of the store. The main business is done. She gave people food for thought. The woman was sure that all, if not more, would show up at the house to see Maria. Shame. Look at them with their heads up. Ugh. In fact, I thought I should tar the gate at night, like they used to do in the old days. But then I decided that I could get some gingerbread from my relative, and decided to limit herself to a fiery speech. When Maria arrived, she would take revenge for all her words. Miranda looked out the window and raised her eyebrows to the window. Zach came up as well. Whoa, is this the whole Maria meet and greet? Miranda sighed. I wish it was a good thing. You see, it's the grandmother. She must have brought everyone. Emily can't get over the fact that her grandson ran after Maria. She's trying to ruin Maria's life. She can say mean things, ruin her mood. You know, when Maria arrived, she couldn't even go outside for a long time. Then what did they say about her? Zach smiled. I recognize her village. I'm from the village too. Like my grandmother used to say, a village is a place at one end. Someone spoiled the air, and at the other end they already know that they can get their pants dirty. Miranda laughed. Oh, I can't with you. I never thought you could say that. You know, that's what they say in our country too, only in slightly different words. Zach smiled. You don't worry, everything will be fine. And Maria's not alone. What's up with them? Miranda looked at the man questioningly. Well, how can I put this? First Maria cried, then she kicked my son the hell out. Good for you, by the way. You should have said something else. Then she kind of listened. Anyway, they're going together. They are. Really, he called half an hour ago. Miranda was quiet for a minute. I wish Maria would finally have some happiness in her life. Look at this. And David is mine. You'll love it. Miranda smiled. Then she exclaimed, "Oh, look, there's a car." They went outside. There were a lot of people outside the house, but Miranda proudly walked past all of them and stopped at Anna's path and said confusedly who was with her. "Who's who?" "Our new businessman who bought the farm from Peter. I wonder what he's doing here." Anna squinted. It was so unexpected that it threw her off balance for a few seconds. Actually, the businessman shouldn't be here, and he's probably been in the house for a long time without a car. All right, she would think about that later. Now she had to think about something else, because two cars were approaching the house, and such cars that Anna even took a step back to rethink what she had just seen. She took a step back and turned around. There was a wall of people she herself had brought here. "You, Anna, go, go, go. We may still have work to do. I don't want him to ask what we were doing here later. The main thing is that it's not clear what he has to do with all this." Anna chuckled. "Nothing. Jesus, he gave her a ride to the maternity hospital. And as a well-mannered man he came, he probably brought her a present." People were gossiping. It's true, isn't it? Everyone began to move closer. I really wanted to see that dark-skinned child. The cars stopped. One car they recognized immediately. It was the car of their businessman, but the other was a stranger from Zach's car. And his driver started unloading flowers and gifts. People were looking. Not bad. So I took one time out on the street, and here you are. How many gifts? Anna smiled. Everything is going according to plan. People are like that. The main thing in the right direction to send thoughts. And then, as usual, she walked, embarrassed to get closer to Miranda. "Aren't you ashamed?" In public, fat, heavy bang. Miranda looked at her in surprise. "Why should I be ashamed? It should be you who should be ashamed of your filthy tongue. That my tongue did not tell the truth somewhere walking. You had both a daughter and a granddaughter. You'll see, and Maria will throw a child at you and only wags her tail at men to hang around. That she has a grandmother husband. No. Walk. I do not want." Zach at first decided not to interfere in this conversation. Then he couldn't stand it. "Come on, Miranda. It's time for you to meet your son-in-law." Anna opened her mouth. "What son-in-law?" At that very time, a young man got out of the first car. He looked a lot like their new businessman. There were whispers in the crowd about his son. "That's his son too. They say he has a lot of money." David looked at the people with a surprised look and opened the back door of the car. After a second, he turned around. There was a boyish smile on his face and a bundle in his arms. The blue of the power blanket was transferring to the son. He carefully shifted his son onto one arm and reached into the car. Maria stepped out of the car. Miranda rushed over to her, hugging Maria. The grandmother smiled. "Meet David, David's dad." The crowd buzzed. "He's dark-skinned. What's the setup? Where to freeze on, Anna?" I picked up my skirts and hurried to my house. They're all still on crutches. David looked fondly at Maria, then at his son when his father called him. Something turned over in David's soul. He suddenly felt that he was no longer just a man. Now he was a man who was responsible for his family, for Maria, for the baby. He was sure that the baby would be all right, because he could already feel it, even though it had not been born yet. At the hospital, they wouldn't let him in. They told Maria that she was asleep, and no one would be allowed to see her now. Her father had already taken Maria's grandmother away, and David was determined not to go anywhere and leave Maria and her son alone. They tried to send him home. They didn't want to talk to him. Maria. But David was not the kind of man to give up. A month later, the village was talking again. True, the talk was no longer about Maria, but about the 2 pillows with which Maria had once gone to the mountains. The police came from the town, and accompanied by a policeman, they went to Kathy's house. Naturally, An hour later, the whole village knew that Maria was not alone with an empty purse at that time. Now the village was really buzzing. The police came to Maria's house. "Do you need to write a statement too?" Maria smiled. "No, I won't do that. In fact, I'm very grateful to the girls for doing this to me. If I hadn't been alone in a strange city with no money, I wouldn't have met my new family. I wouldn't have William. Give the girls mine. Thank you very much." That evening, the guests delivered those words to Kathy and Emily. Kathy even felt a twinge. Mother Teresa was a blessed fool, and she still is. But that's okay. Now this will all be over. And you and I, Emily, will go back to town. This time, you and I will succeed. The guest looked at her in surprise. "I thought we were getting married." Kathy chuckled. "Who needs you? Your daddy helped, and that's it." She turned to Emily. "So what do you say we go?" Emily shook her head. "You know what, Kathy? You can take offense, but I'm not going anywhere with you ever again. I do not need such happiness and gift. Maybe Maria, and only she is now in chocolate, and we are. You went, friend." Emily turned around and walked towards the house. Sam caught up with her in a second and said, "I'm with you." Kathy jumped up. "Well, bring down the redneck about the wrong one. Here you will twist the tails of cows all your life, and I wasn't born for that." She cursed helplessly, then burst into tears. "Remember, you will still know me, what I will become." But no one heard her. "Maria, maybe stay for a while." "No, I'm going to Grandma. David is getting divorced tomorrow. Need to support him." Vanessa is very belligerent. "I'm already worried. I really don't need it, Grandma. In general, David asked me to talk to you." "Talked about what?" "Well, Grandmother, you understand how you and I will miss you. I understand that you love the village, but maybe you will think about it anyway." Miranda smiled. "No, Maria, I will stay here and wait for you to visit. I just don't know. Zakhar Artem still has to work. I will be in charge of production. You know, it's so nice to know that you haven't been completely written off yet." Maria looked at her grandmother in surprise. "So Granny is 66. How old is Zach? Why is Grandma blushing so much?" "Who's Zach?" 63. They recently celebrated his birthday. In the evening, David hugged Maria and asked, "Why are you so thoughtful? Do you miss Grandma?" "No, it's not that I'm bored." Say, well, David was waiting for Maria to continue. She didn't know how to phrase it. "Don't you think that your father and my grandmother have some kind of warm relationship?" David laughed. "Well, Maria, do you really think that age chooses happiness? Do you remember how much older I am than you?" Maria smiled, snuggled up to him. "I don't remember, and I don't want to remember. You are probably right. No need to look for some pitfalls where people are happy." David looked at his sleeping son, who was tossing about on a crib, a wife who had already sweetly advised, and suddenly realized that happiness is not just words. It is something so huge that it does not fit either in the head or in the soul. He smiled lightly, kissed Maria's slit, and settled down on the pillow next to her. Let everyone around be happy, because it's wonderful.